Well, hello there. I just wanted to take a few minutes and talk about the mechanics of what makes for a good improv show introduction, and also give you some pointers when you're interviewing a special guest or interviewing the audience to gather information for comedy scenes. So let's talk about your introduction first. Obviously, the first thing that's going to happen is your team is going to be announced and you're going to come out into the stage. You're going to have a ton of energy. You're not going to overdo it, but you're going to be energetic and positive. Basically, the intro to an improv show is just welcoming the audience to the show and giving them a brief description of what they're about to see. Side note, I'm sharing this with you because I have made all the mistakes. And I'm hoping that just a couple of pointers will help you have a stronger intro and a stronger opening. Okay, first pointer is try not to let anything distract you until you have given the audience a description of what they're about to see. The audience is going to start evaluating you, or what I like to call judging you, as soon as you enter the stage. So if you can have a sincere welcome and a playful description of what the show is going to be, you've already set a really good tone for the rest of the show. You should go into every show thinking that the audience has never been there before. So, for example, if I come out on stage and I get distracted right off the bat and I start talking to maybe another cast member about something that happened in a previous show, the audience doesn't know what's happening yet, and so you'll start to lose them a little bit. That's why it's really important to not get distracted until you've told them exactly what's going to happen in the show. It's kind of like labeling an improv pattern at the beginning of the scene. So now all they have to do is, they know what's going on, all they have to do is follow along. Ultimately, the audience just wants to get to the part of the show where you're creating improv scenes. So it's important to move on out of your intro and into your opening and into the show as quickly as you can, but without it feeling rushed. So let's switch gears and talk about using a guest storyteller or interviewing the audience as a way of gathering information for improv scenes. So first and most importantly, treat your guest or the audience members you talk to like they're royalty. The more you support them, the more information they're going to give you. Don't get me wrong, if they say something weird or out of place or crazy, don't be afraid to call them out. But the important thing is to wrap back around and make them feel like a superstar again. Don't let the way you feel about a subject get in the way of how your guest or an audience member feels about a subject. You could think something is petty and dumb, but they could think it's the most awesome thing in the whole world. I mean, unless they're terrible people, and then none of this applies. Just move on. When a guest or audience member is sharing something personal, they're very vulnerable. And so if you make them feel stupid or silly, they're going to stop sharing with you, and they're going to get defensive. And then the next thing that's going to happen is the audience is going to pick up on that. So now not only have you alienated a guest or some audience members, other audience members are now against you. Stay positive. Treat everyone like royalty. Sometimes it's going to be really difficult to get good information from the guest or the audience member. Now, with an audience member, if they're not giving you information, the best thing to do is to just move on. Thank them, and then move on. Still treat them nice, but just let's move on to another audience to get a fresh perspective. If you're interviewing a special guest and they're not giving you a lot of information, sometimes it's good to share your own experiences and how you feel about that subject so that they might key in on that and start to share more of their perspective on the subject. If you're still not getting a lot of information from your special guest, one of the things your teammates can do is to step forward and maybe tell a brief story on the same subject or share their feelings on that subject. So now we still are getting information for scenes, but we aren't shutting down the interview or anything like that. Next pointer is to learn the art of repeating. Learn the art of repeating important information. Sometimes your guest will be quiet on stage. And sometimes it's difficult, actually most of the time it's difficult to hear everything that an audience member says, especially with a mask on. So it's always good to just repeat important things that they say so that the audience is clued into it and so that your other cast members are on board as well. So if I'm interviewing somebody in the audience and I say like, what brings you to town? And they say, a concert. I could say, oh, a concert, cool. Are you here for Aftershock? And they might say, yes, because they don't give you a lot of information. And you could say, oh, Aftershock, that's awesome. What band do you like? Back and forth, always repeating important information. Okay, next pointer. If you're in charge of the opening, it's really important that you get a diverse mixture of subjects for scenes. The more we talk about on stage, the more ideas we'll have later on for scenes. It's not just your responsibility, too. Your cast members can also help out. They can lean forward and say, hey, Brian, can you ask the audience maybe who is celebrating something this weekend? Or maybe we've spent too long on a slide, like for screen time is a good example. Somebody can lean forward and go, okay, that slide was great. Do we have a couple more we can talk about? It's just your way of politely saying, hey, we've got some information here. Maybe we can move on to something else. I mean, I've done this 1,000 times where I'll ask a couple of different people about their relationships, but I haven't asked them about anything else. So then we have this really shallow pool of ideas to draw on. So it's always good to just move on to another subject. Okay, the last pointer is to always thank your special guest or audience members for talking with you. So before I move on to the next audience member, thank you. I'm glad that you're here tonight. I appreciate you talking to me. At the end of the show or at the end of the interview of a guest, you can say, it means a lot that you were here and that you shared all this stuff with you. You're an awesome guest. Let's give so-and-so a big round of applause for being here today. I guess when it comes down to it, the key to any good intro and opening is moderation. We want the intro to be informative and to the point. We want the opening to be positive and supportive and to gather a lot of information. But we don't want the intro to seem fake or insincere, and we don't want the opening to go on forever. Hosting a show and interviewing a guest or an audience member is difficult, and it's something that after all this time, I'm always trying to get better at. But I've noticed that if I stay positive and I'm playful on stage, that really helps the audience to feel at home, and they give us a bunch more information, which helps my team develop better and stronger scenes. So stay positive, be playful on stage, and I hope some of these pointers help you out when you're introducing a show or when you're interviewing a guest or an audience member. As always, I'm always here if you have questions or if you want to discuss. So have a good day, and I'll see you later on.